I remember it as clearly as if it was yesterday. The trailer of Primal Season 3 appeared in the recommendations of my YouTube feed. I had no idea Season 3 was gonna be a thing. The instant wave of happiness that flowed throughout my body in that moment must have been like the rush of an opioid addict. From the trailer sequences, I understood that Spear was in some kind of afterlife or purgatory, trying to fight his way out against supernatural beings. When Vengeance of Death, the first episode of the season, premiered in the 18th of January, and I found out that Spear had been revived in the real world, that he did not retain any memories, and that he was nerfed in terms of fighting skills due to his agility and reflexes being still asleep, I was a bit disappointed, but I instantly buried those feelings into the deepest parts of my mind, because the premise of Spear slowly regaining his humanity was really compelling on a human level for me. He was nothing more than a hollow husk in that episode, but after seeing him rescuing the leper when he didn't even remember how to walk properly, we learned how being a protector of the innocent was an intrinsic instinct of his being. In an AMA he did recently, Gendy said that he instantly knew that the Grasshopper episode, Fist of Flesh, was gonna be a fan favorite. And for me, it did click, because we witnessed the depths of the love and loyalty Spear devotes to Fang. The underground pit and the cave dwellers act as a metaphor. He went to hell and back, fueled by the mere shadow of a memory, the faint vestige of his past life companion that his body refused to forget. These first episodes kept building up the true caliber of the bond between Spear, Fang, and Mira. The reunion became the top priority of the viewer, but things were going too slow. And just when we thought Spear was gonna reunite with his family in the last episode, suddenly Fang and Mira were back, and I did not feel the satisfaction I expected I was gonna get from this. And the Andriusarchus plot seemed really cool at first, but it also became anticlimactic. Keep in mind that I enjoyed the Primal Theory episode, and although I knew there was probably a better way to execute the Season 2 finale, I loved it because Spear humiliating the Viking fire demon while being burnt alive was epic enough for me. As someone who has always defended and trusted Gendy's creative decisions for Primal, even I was pretty close to start saying Season 3 was being disappointing, but I still held a flicker of hope based on some of the sequences from the trailers that we still hadn't got to see, especially Spear riding a Quetzalcoatlus. And then River of Life dropped, and almost every single thing I wanted to receive from this season was granted to me in this glorious episode. Spear finds himself in an ominous volcanic region. He was carried there by the vortex of the waterfall, so it seems to be underground, but as we will learn later, it isn't. In psychological terms, a volcano is the perfect visual allegory of repressed feelings that reach a breaking point after having been bottled up for too long. Spear has been rejected and lynched by those whose lives he had once consecrated himself to guarding. His sole companion, the one for whom he has risked his life hundreds of times to protect, now wants to kill him. And all because he was raised from the dead against his will. It's completely reasonable for Spear to have a cathartic moment in which he can finally redirect his anger. Because they lead down to the earth core, because of the danger they pose, and due to their striking symbolic beauty, volcanoes have historically been viewed as literal entrances to hell or the domain of gods. They represent a liminal space between the living world and the afterlife, or the conscious and the subconscious. Spear, who was treated as an anomaly by both animals and humans, doesn't stand out in this place. And as we will keep on discovering, this episode delves a lot into the fantasy side of the story, but these skulls that belong to many prehistoric creatures grounded a bit, making us remember that after all, this is still Primal. Spear arrives at a pit that is used as a colosseum, same concept as the arena that we saw in the Rage of the Ape Men episode. One of the things I love the most about this show is the wide variety of ape species that are displayed, and out of all, I've got to say that these ones are the coolest looking. That is, only if they can really be considered to be primates. I have seen some people consider them to be some sort of dark elves. This could make sense if we take into account how many details of this episode were inspired by the Tolkien mythos, We have the volcanic setting, Gollum, and the trolls. As far as I personally can recognize, I'm not a Tolkien enthusiast, so there are probably more than I have missed. I want to praise the quality of the shaman design. It's so elegant, it's much cooler than the fraud shaman of the Rage of the Ape Men episode. He commands more authority and doesn't need to make noises to get his message across. Spear starts fighting the champion of this species against his will. And aside from the very questionable outfit of the warrior, I was surprised by how skilled he is. Keep in mind, this spear is no longer nerfed like he was in the first half of the season. He has recovered his muscle memory and his reasoning capacity, so he is as nimble and intelligent as he was when he was alive, but with higher resistance to injuries. And given the caliber of the enemies Spear has overcome, the fact this random gladiator would have killed him if he wasn't a zombie is astounding to me. The way in which he throws hands after Spear steals his weapon is very human-like. It reminds me of Lord Darlington from the Primal Theory episode. He is like an early 20th century boxer with some cool kicks mixed in his repertoire. After his first win, Spear is taken to a volcanic river where there is a current of the same liquid that was used by the apes from Season 1 to dramatically enhance the strength of their fighters, the Black Goop. We see a blind ape whose whole life purpose was being the bringer of the fluid. He jumps throughout the river rocks, avoiding the lava. But that wasn't what shocked me the most. It was his ability to climb that vertical wall, especially when he had to go downwards. It's so effortless. Spear's body apparently grows stronger after he consumes the Black Goop, and a lot of people believe there are many indications that his body and mind are regenerating due to the fluid. We could interpret this as a metaphor. It's only after he lets go of his ties to his old life that he finally starts recovering his old self, physically and psychologically. It might seem paradoxical, but it's not until he ceases to chase the ghosts of his past that he finally feels the peace that allows his true self, his healed body and recovered memories, to finally breathe. Leaving the symbolic analysis aside, we almost cannot appreciate the difference between the before and after. It's almost as if this Black Goop was a stimulant only. The contrast with the one from Season 1 is obvious. The gorilla champion drank only a drop and he grew hundreds of kilograms of muscle. Maybe Spear's zombie state is the reason why he did not experience as much of an effect. Or is this Black Goop diluted? This could make sense. The Black Goop of the Rage of the Ape Men episode was pitch black. This one isn't as dark. The one from the Ape Men was probably either purified to amplify its effects or fermented. The champion of the arena seems to be the only one with the right to drink it. This seems like an unfair advantage, and it probably implies that the warrior we had talked about had drunk it. But he didn't seem to have one of the enhanced physiques we saw in Season 1. He was just skilled. This could be evidence verifying that the Black Goop from this episode is in fact weaker, and that's what I choose to believe. Spear is no longer the underdog of the volcanic arena. He has got to defend his crown. The following fights remind me a lot of the time when Ippo became the featherweight champion of Japan and his title defenses. He faces the creatures I mentioned that look too much like a troll from Lord of the Rings. This time, Spear willingly jumps into the arena to defend his title. Shout out to Tyler Bates and Joan Higginbottom because the soundtrack of this scene takes me to another world. It's what makes this scene my favorite of the episode. If you weigh 60 kilograms and you fight someone who weighs 80 kilograms, you are gonna have a really hard time. It will be borderline impossible to get a knockout if your adversary is also a good fighter. And this must be like 900 kilograms to 90 kilograms, 10 to 1. But Spear doesn't care about the size difference and proceeds to break the creature's jaw from one punch. Of all the possibilities he had for his next move, he chooses to deadlift the giant's foot. But of course, he's strong enough to do it. After bringing it down, he seizes the clap and turns the tables, brutalizing the one who naively expected to be the brutalizer. I love how the volcanic apes start cheering in favor of Spear, while the albino trolls stand in silence in complete disbelief. This is a David and Goliath situation, and that's why this shot evokes the same energy as Astinos extinguishing the rhinoceros in 300. Then the warrior with the most mystique of the whole series appears. He's like a custom character from a video game created with mods. You cannot possibly accumulate more main character energy. This guy pulls up in a Quetzalcoatlus with a rune sword, like he's Tobias appearing in the Xeno League with a team full of legendary Pokemon. Keep in mind, there's quite some height here, at least 8 meters. This human, who could have descended climbing, decides to attack Spear from above, directly out of his Quetzalcoatlus. He doesn't even need to perform a roll when landing. He's a Celt, probably from the same tribe as Red. So what in hell is he doing here? He is a young, healthy, and intelligent male. He isn't lost, he hasn't been kidnapped. He's here just because of his love of the game. He wants to test his strength. He could have lived with glory, peace, wealth, and happiness in his tribe. But he doesn't want that. He tames a Quetzalcoatlus and pulls up to a lost primate supernatural volcanic colosseum from a tribe lost in time to fight a zombie with his rune sword. The way in which he stabbed Spear backwards with 100% of confidence in the success of his attack was just too charismatic. In another world, he wouldn't have had negative float armor and Spear would not have killed him in such a gruesome way. Spear and Mira seem to be interconnected. This is a bit weird because we did not see Mira reacting spiritually in any way to Spear being revived. But she's reacting now to Spear's deeds in the Colosseum. And speaking of the Colosseum, Spear is the king. Might is right. He sits unfazed and alone, for his prowess is unmatched. But that crown, the one that gave him quasi-deity status and signaled that his name was forever etched into the heavens of combat, is hollow for him. It mirrored the mountain of offerings laid at his feet, lavish tributes for a being who doesn't need to eat in order to survive. He starts reasoning about memories from the times when he hadn't completely recovered his consciousness. He did not comprehend most of what was going on. He just reacted reflexively to dangerous situations. He now understands what Mira was referring to when she made that drawing on the ground. She's pregnant, or was. Spear doesn't know what ended up happening with their baby, so he now has the need of paying Mira a visit. He has to tame the Quetzalcoatlus of the dead Celt, but it is not an easy task. In order to free the mighty flying creature, he has to lift this really heavy looking hunk of metal. If I had to bet, I would say Spear can bench press 600 kilograms and squat around 1 ton. And honestly, this sequence made me respect the Celt even more. He subjugated the beast by himself, without Spear's superhuman strength or his familiarity with dinosaurs. And Spear arrives at Mira's village flying straight. He doesn't get to the surface by flying out of a hole. That's how we found out that the underground volcanic civilization isn't actually underground. Or, maybe I was the only one who thought it was underground. Spear finds out his daughter was born, and it fills him with happiness. But as much as he wants to, he cannot stay and raise it, because after all the season, he has ended up understanding that he's an anomaly. There is no point in trying to be with them anymore when his best friend doesn't even tolerate his presence. This is character growth from the previous episode, Heart of the Undead, in which he was playing a hypothetical scenario where he desperately tried to make Fang recognize him. Most people believe that Fang doesn't accept Spear because she doesn't recognize his scent. We have all heard that fun fact of cat mothers rejecting their newborn offspring if they have been touched by humans. And even though this whole thing is an urban legend, there's a bit of truth in it. Scent is extremely important for animals, more than we will ever comprehend, and that's probably the main reason, or one of the most important ones. But we also know that Fang can develop traumas and post-traumatic stress disorder. She became afraid, aggressive, and overall anxious when she saw a small worm in the Rage of the Ape Men episode, because it reminded her of the Snakes of the River of Snakes episode. Spear was also there, but he did not develop that trauma towards the snakes. But he did become very scared of the Plague of Madness dinosaur. After escaping the first time, he had a nightmare in which he was infected, and he was horrified when he saw the bones of his hand and how his guts were missing. It's a tragedy that both things became true in this third season. What if Fang also had PTSD from the infected sauropod? She was just as shocked as Spear after they avoided it the first time, and when they believed the sauropod had died, Spear wanted to leave, but Fang was reluctant she did not trust it being completely dead. They were both already severely traumatized, but after that, the sauropod still came back. Just imagine how much the trauma worsened after this. And even after that, when they were completely sure it was stuck for good, the dinosaur still somehow found a way to keep chasing them. This must have deepened the trauma so much that it is etched into their souls. It's like in Breaking Bad, when Saul was only afraid of being kidnapped because he thought Lalo was behind it, when he knew Lalo was dead. But he had already thought Lalo was dead, only to find him in his home. Maybe the plague of madness trauma is why Fang rejects Spear. She knows it's him, and he has more or less good intentions, but she cannot turn off her visceral reaction to those memories. But regardless, he now understands that Fang will not ever see him in the same way, and he has found a place where not only they don't reject him, but they worship him for his strengths. That's why he immediately goes back to the volcanic region. Mira, who had had a successful birth, by the way, I forgot to mention, with the emotional support of Fang and her youngling, realizes Spear has come back, yet only briefly, and she ties the new information with the visions and nightmares she has been experiencing, piecing together the clues and reasoning that Spear must be in the volcanic region, and due to being pretty close, her village has what seems to be an old and forbidden map of that place. Her culture treats this region with a sacred dread, a land bound by ancient taboos. It seems to be surrounded by inherent magic, and I would go as far as to say that in the drawing we can recognize the troll species and its quadrupedal predator, which we can assume to be the panther from the trailer sequences. The episode ends with Mira deciding to rescue her husband, while Spear is about to fight a giant ogre, although we already know how that's going to end from the trailer sequence. The hype I had for this season was based on 1. The uncertainty of how were they gonna handle what seemed to be the obvious supernatural elements, most of which didn't end up being actually supernatural, for better or for worse. 2. How good the action sequences with Spear were gonna be. And 3. How were they gonna develop further the family bond, which has always been the core of the show. After all three had been underwhelming, I was almost ready to say that I was disappointed. I liked the fight with the lions. The revenge against the cave dwellers was interesting. The giant worm chase was thrilling. The Andrewsarchus and the matriarchal giant were fun, but we were already 7 episodes in, and looking back, the contrast is undeniable. The equivalent span in the previous 2 seasons offered a caliber of storytelling that far surpasses what we have seen in Season 3. But then, last Monday, River of Life was released. We got action, Spear outbrooting the champion of a magical species of Kamau's size was something I didn't know I needed. The Primal world, as vast as it was, now feels even bigger. The magical elements, previously scarce, have been expanded. We have gotten a multitude of new sentient species. We are now aware of the fact that there are civilizations of apes with melee weapon technology. River of Life was connected to previous beloved episodes, but it did not rely on the fan service of the already existing story elements. This was Season 1 level of world building, and it could not have been done without the outstanding art of this episode. The shaman placing the hollow crown, the monkey with the hammer, Spear on the summit, the blind ape risking his life to deliver the Black Goop, and the landscape designs that could not have captured the primordial, belligerent and mystical vibe better. So beautiful and so evocative. The freedom of the artists is apparent, and we received something that was truly unprecedented. Spear fighting for the sake of it. Obviously, he's not going to maintain this mentality forever, and I would not want it to be another way. But it's nice to get, even if it's only for 1 episode, a Spear that truly embraces violence as his purpose.